What is going on, everybody? It is the Going Over Big Time podcast. I am Mike Charlip, and I am joined once again by my friend and co host, Alan, the Cantastic. Alan, how are you doing today?
Oh, good. We're just I've got Raw on in the background, just checking
Yeah,
out how this is going. So
yeah,
far, to be honest, Raw isn't that bad right now. I mean, last week they actually did pretty well. This week they've
yeah.
seemed to have cut out all these nonsense segments and just stuff that probably doesn't make sense. I mean, it's
hmm
marginally better. I mean, it's a pretty low bar they've already set for themselves, but looks like it's gradually looking better than usual.
well, well, speaking of low bars, the topic that we're here to discuss today is WWE Unreal Season 3. Uh, Season 3 premiered on Netflix on July 21st. And we're just getting to it now just because we haven't really had the time to discuss it. So we're only, 3 weeks behind. But it's still relevant. I think people are still talking about it. So I figured it would make the most sense for us to talk about it. Once again, it was a 5 episode season, um, which is just so strange. Uh, to even call that a season of television. It's more like a mini season of television, but it is what it is. It's Netflix. Um, and the thing that came out of it that I came out of it was real got out of it was a lot of the same that I was kind of feeling about season 2 was I felt for a lot of the wrestlers and I did not feel anything towards creative because creative I think they bill it as they're pulling the curtain back, right? But a lot of the stuff that they talk about when it comes to the creative process is their narrative. So they pull stuff that they think is good to talk about, but don't talk about the stuff that's relevant that we actually want to hear about. Like they were still talking about John Cena's heel turn, at the beginning of it. We're not really getting into like the breakdown yet, but like just as an example, they were talking about John Cena's heel turn at the very beginning of the first episode, and there was absolutely no mention of The Rock at all, which was the problem. So we're not addressing the actual problem. They're making up excuses as to why the heel turn was bad when the reason is because they got their knees cut out from under them and didn't have a creative direction. But instead, they're blaming John Cena and painting Triple H like the hero because he saved it, which is what they did. And that is ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, although I am not entirely that surprised, like this, you know, they're fairly, the WWE is a very well marketed and like very scripted product. They're not gonna risk saying anything that was gonna put them like in a bad light. I think even with like especially with like on Netflix where it's like what millions and millions of people are watching. Um, I mean, it's like I mean even like geez, so I'm losing my train of thought here. I had something I had something on my mind about what I thought about Unreal, this whole thing. I think it reminds me of back in season one, like even Paul Heyman when he was like getting interviewed, he said, I'm not a fan of this show," and I think he
Mhm.
had a point because coming from the old school mindset that you don't expose this kind of thing, right? It's like this was all supposed to be like
Yeah.
um, kept in the background, and it just slowly percolated over time, and to the point where you know it's become more mainstream to understand that this is a scripted show, but then they don't want to talk about all this stuff about how they decide to write and who make the decisions to
Mhm.
put who in whose spot and things like that. Yeah, but
Well,
there was a
also,
lot.
I think. Sorry, go finish your thought.
And there's, but yeah, like you mentioned, like the omission of mentioning the Rock's involvement in Cena's retirement tour, and like certain other things which we'll get into later, that was not included. Yeah, it's like they're whitewashing their own ideas for the show. I think.
Yeah, and I think part of it, and again, they're painting it as they're pulling back the curtain and stuff, but I still think like the old heads are like, oh well, I like you said, Paul Heyman, not a fan of doing this per se, but I still think that they're working this show like a wrestling show. This is not they're not fully pulling the curtain back. That's why they're playing up a narrative on the show. They're still working on the show. It's just a new version of kayfabe.
Right. And I guess with Netflix documentaries are notorious for basically, you know, revealing as much as possible, and whether it's a true crime documentary or like some expose or the behind the scenes of a corporation. I mean, we're not talking like Dark Side of the Ring here. This is more just like,
Yeah.
yeah, they're like this is a they're booking like a wrestling show, like they're booking the series like one of their shows, right? Like a wrestling show.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and you bring up Dark Side of the Ring, which I think we are probably going to talk about at a later date. Um, that is not being helmed by a wrestling company. That is being produced on a network with people who are the driving force behind it. There's no wrestling company involvement. They just get people who are relevant to the topic that they're discussing on that episode. Like
Hmm.
WWE is producing Unreal and trying to paint it as see how hard the creative process is when you're not giving us all the details.
Yeah.
And part of that is the John Cena stuff. So that was a big part of the first two episodes was John Cena's retirement. And the first episode was a lot of John Cena's talking about the why he does or did certain things in his run. And one of the things that stuck out the most was when they were talking about, like I mentioned, they were talking about the John Cena heel turn and saying how John Cena had an idea for the heel turn that Triple H did not like and thought that it would get the wrong kind of heat, which is also hypocritical of him because he has said on the record multiple times that any heat is good heat. So, um, again, it's just his narrative of trying to paint other people in a bad light and not himself. And then the John Cena heel turn stuff happens. It goes badly for what based on what we talked about. And they say that they were going to basically Cody was going to beat it out of him. That he wasn't supposed to turn babyface before SummerSlam. He was going to turn babyface after SummerSlam. But because the crowd forced their hand, they decided to do the turn before SummerSlam, which I could believe to a certain extent, but at the same time, the reason is because the heel turn was bad. All of it was bad. And the fans were tired of it. You didn't give us this John Cena heel turn for 20 plus years. And then when you finally do it, you do it badly.
Yeah, I still don't know like how they. Well, I guess it was out of their hands because The Rock essentially like tapped out and said like, okay, I'm not, I'm pulling out, I'm crashing out, y'all.
Yeah.
So they had to make do with what they had left. Um, I mean, the only part that I would say made sense, and I, for the life of me, I'm sorry, I can't remember if this was mentioned. It was like, oh yeah, the expected heel is supposed to change their music, change their appearance, everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
So people were expecting like, you know, a darker version of like the his entrance music and him like just completely like dressed
Yeah.
out, probably like a throwback to a Doctor of Thugonomics version, which was the
Mm-hmm.
last time John Cena was heel. But no, instead he just came out the same old music, you know, almost like wearing the same gear because they already manufactured
Yeah.
all this gear for the farewell tour. And
Yep.
the excuse they made was like, yeah, you don't deserve a proper heel turn because as a real heel, I am gonna actually just keep all my same shit because
Mm-hmm.
that's what you don't want.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to remember what John's explanation was for all of this. Like that he thought that this was gonna make us all watch even more. I mean,
Well, he
other than
essentially
wanting to
said he essentially said that it was he wanted it to come off as so boring that the fans would want to see him get beat up, which is what a heel is
uh
supposed to do, but not to make it boring, to actually make us want to hate you. Like, and he didn't really do that because, as we mentioned, the stuff with The Rock really cut their knees from under them.
yeah.
So it's just, and then he's talking about the why of why he had to face Brock Lesnar again, and
Okay. Yep.
that was absolutely ridiculous. He's talking about the why, about why he was to face Logan Paul when he was supposed to face Drew McIntyre at that show, and they're talking about how the AJ Styles match uh, kind of just fell into their lap, but Triple H painted it like, oh, okay, I'll just give the fans what they want instead of doing what we were gonna do. And it's just a lot of that. It's a lot of, oh, see, I do listen to you guys when I feel like it. And nobody wanted to see John Cena versus Logan Paul. Nobody wanted to see John Cena. Um, they wanted to see John Cena face people that they hadn't gotten to see him face at the time. Aleister Black was still there. He never faced him. He never. There were so many people there that he never faced, and they just decided to do this uh, tour of all his greatest rivals and R-Truth, and nobody really cared. Nobody really cared to see him face Randy Orton for the 1200th time. Nobody really cared to. Nobody cared at all to see him face R-Truth. They just did that because of the stuff that fell into their lap based on the stuff about him getting fired in the last season. And
Yeah, I mean, the thing about I think they what they did was rather than try to like push new stars, which ironically I think the only time they ever did that was during the Saturday Night Main Event. That was John Cena's last match when they like
mhm,
gave Obafemi and Sol Ruka some matches on that show to sort of do it a pay it forward principle to like to like let new people like um get some of the spotlight during John Cena's final wrestling
yeah,
match.
yeah,
Rather than just do that through the entire run, which you know this is a symptom of a general basis of WWE creative at this point. They are not very good at trying new ideas or too afraid to try new ideas instead of going back to tried and true formulas of like John Cena, Randy Orton, John Cena versus Brock Lesnar, and the John Cena versus Brock Lesnar. I don't remember exact reason. I mean, if he said something like greatest combat athlete in sports history, yes, we've heard that all before. The only way that would have been more intriguing is if like John wrestled a match against Brock that was a little bit more different than the one-sided ass whooping Brock gave him in SummerSlam 2014 when he just mauled him in like 8 minutes and just took the title off him. If it was, but here's the thing: despite how Lesnar looks and how dominant he looks, like he's probably limited in the moves that he can do at this point. So there's not a lot you can do with the guy, unfortunately.
Yeah, and
so the match turned out. So the match was a little more creative when it played out, rather than just repeating what had happened 12 years ago. Then I would say giving a not like having him face Brock Lesnar again would have made some more sense, but they didn't even add any sort of real substantive storyline there too. So it was just like, oh, okay, this is for like audiences that saw John Cena for the last 25 years and would have remembered all these old rivalries. Okay, but what about like these new people that, I mean, the one thing, John Cena's career started when he like stepped right in front of Kurt Angle's face and like I said, basically, I'm a new generation and I have ruthless aggression. So, he just should have just called it the Ruthless Aggression Tour and just said, I'm going to be Kurt Angle. I'm going to pay it for it like Kurt Angle did me 20 plus years ago. Who's ready to like step up to me and just slap me in the face and see if they can take me on? That should have done that like every other week. Would have been great. But to hear John sound like he was happy about this, his heater. As we said in the beginning, this was a heavily wrestling style booked documentary, or he's lying to himself. I'm gonna be that.
Well, he's also a company guy, so he's just gonna say what they want him to say.
Of course.
For him to even imply that Triple H's idea was even remotely better than what he came up with, when that was also bad, is ridiculous. And the only thing the only good that really came out of the run was the AJ Styles match. Everybody loved that. And I mean, you could have did that anyway, but they weren't even planning to do that.
He just fell into their lap. They got lucky.
Yeah. And he was supposed to face Drew, and that didn't happen. And he faced Dominic like 3 times, which
that was only to get the Intercontinental title on him. Which I guess that was the only way to do it. You didn't need a long run; just give it to him for a week. Less than 1 week title reigns are, if done right, they look good. But as Sami Zayn can attest, it's not.
Well, always. And that played into, I guess, another thing that happened on the show that we'll get to in a little bit. But they obviously talked about the Gunther match, and he basically explained that the reason that he tapped out was because he had nothing left, and it was the perfect storybook ending. Like, this is it. I'm done. And that's why he, went out the way that he did, and that's all fine. And I believe John Cena in a sense when it comes to like stuff like that, but it's just the creative side of what they're explaining that sounds completely ridiculous, and it is. And I don't necessarily think that it really helped Gunther that much to be the person to retire John Cena, because we saw what they did after. And it hasn't really elevated him at all. You would think it would, but it hasn't.
Well, I mean, since he beat John Cena, he went on to retire AJ Styles. And then I guess he was like embroiled in a feud with Cody and then Sami Zayn and then like CM. And then, it culminated in Nick Aldis, of all people. Not that Nick Aldis had a bad match. It was just like, why are you fighting? Why are you fighting your boss? I mean, this is not Austin versus McMahon. And then now he's just lost in the shuffle again, it seems.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I mean, I I liked John Cena's perspective. I didn't agree with all of it because a lot of it felt um, manufactured,
Mm.
especially when he talked about facing Logan Paul and facing Brock Lesnar, because I can't find a single reason for either of those to happen and for anybody to care about them. But yeah, I mean, and going off of that, um, they also talked about Liv Morgan and her injury. This is kind of connected. Well, actually, let's talk about CM Punk. So CM Punk, he talked about his final match with John Cena, which they had in was it in Saudi or Australia? It was in Saudi, right?
Yeah.
And they talked about the battle rap that they, well, it wasn't really a battle rap. It was CM Punk rapping to John Cena, and CM Punk talked about how like there was a point during that where he went up to John Cena in the ring just to like bring him back down to like a level where he could feel it, and he basically just whispered to him while he was in the ring like, I'm really going to miss you,
Mm.
which I liked. I liked that because stuff like that, when they talk about stuff like that and they get emotional about stuff, I believe that. I believe the emotional stuff. Um, and the same thing when they, you know, when it comes to CM Punk, they also talked about a lot of about AJ Lee's return and how that was set up and how they got there and how that made him feel and how he is definitely happier when she's around because that's his wife.
Mm.
And he was talking about how it makes the road a lot easier when they're traveling together, which again I believe. They also talked about Larry because Larry, of course, played a big role in CM Punk's return to wrestling in general, not just WWE. Um, and of course, they talked about how they lost Larry and how that how that made them feel, and obviously we've all had pets that we lost, and
Mm.
that was a very emotional thing for them to talk about. And AJ Lee, of course, talking about her return and everything that meant to her, because she never thought that she would do it again, and the fact that things have changed so much in the time that she was gone that she finally feels like she succeeded in doing what she was doing when in her initial run, which was to make women's wrestling feel like it does now. And this run, she got to experience it. And the initial match, her first match back, which was the mixed tag at WrestlePalooza, she had never had a match that long. Uh, she had never. I think she said she had never had a match longer than like 8 minutes or
Yeah.
something like that. And she just felt, like that was, she loved that. She loved feeling that, and the fact that so many fans, even fans that were not even alive when she was wrestling the first time, just were so happy for her to be back. And see that those are the kinds of things that I like about this show, is stuff like that. And
Yeah. Yeah. Focusing on like just so, sort of like the real people, the
yeah,
real person behind the person you see on the screen, and like just about the things in their lives that affected them, or how like things within the business like affect them personally or professionally. Just giving them a chance to like be themselves, right? Like this would be the one of the core positives of having a show like this. I mean, if there's a point there where if there's a season down the road where they could just strip out talk about, oh, this is how we came to this booking decision. At this point, like it's not. Maybe that's not as genuine as like showing the sort of like uh human side of their performers.
Yeah, and CM Punk, of course, also had some very emotional moments. Of course, talking about Larry and talking about her being back and just all of that, and also Liv Morgan, kind of in the same vein. Liv Morgan, um, who was injured last year and made her return at Survivor Series, and they played that into the John Cena stuff when he lost the IC title to Dominic, lost it back to Dominic. Even though I thought that was very overbooked, it was like that was emotional for her because she, had a really bad injury and being able to come back when she did. And they also talked about that one moment in the build to WrestleMania where like she and Roxanne like banged heads really bad, and just like stuff like that, like where she felt like something always happens kind of thing, and they just find a way to adjust to it, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Also, like connected to that was like they had a little bit with Stephanie also, where she talked about that this was her dream and to finally get there. And I mean, they didn't do a lot with Stephanie, obviously, but
Like the language barrier may have been an issue.
yeah, yeah. I mean, she mostly spoke in Spanish with subtitles,
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, it was nice to see that also. Um, a part of this that I did not like was when they were talking about their WrestleMania match and how it was very short. And we initially, when it happened, were like, "Oh, is this match really short because something happened between them, or is somebody hurt?" And we come to find out that Triple H told them to shorten the match to to make more time for other matches. And Liv actually went back there, and I was so shocked that they included this. Liv goes back there and goes up to Triple H, and she's like, "Oh, did we make time? Like, did you make time? Your match should have been 6 minutes longer." Like, the fact that that's even a thought is crazy. Like that the women's title match for the Royal Rumble winner was 8 minutes long. Like, that's ridiculous.
So you're saying they included the part where like Liv was saying, "Did we make the time that you told us to make?" As in that short,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
so you're like, I can't believe Liv actually said that. Like you're saying like she should have asked
yeah,
for more time, which would be more ideal.
yeah.
So I
I mean,
feel
I
like
get.
maybe I feel like that is like you know a symptom of her. I like the way John Cena is a company person. Look at the stuff
Mhm.
that she's done lately. She's released a new music video in which
Yeah.
she is the lead singer, which is a theme
Mhm.
song she sang herself, which she now sings to the ring. Which there's a thing about you singing your own theme song to the as a ring entrance. It's kind of weird. Um,
Yeah.
we also had to bring up that she went through 100 days without defending the title, had
Yep.
one title match, and it's like now being made fun of that for the fact that she doesn't defend her title for several months. I don't
Yep.
know. I feel like she's getting a lot of good treatment which is a far cry from like 5 or 6 years ago when she was like kind of like lower on the pecking order, and to a point where
Well,
Paul Heyman said she was the future, but they
well, yeah.
weren't listening to him at the time.
It also seems like they're manufacturing, like, again, this is stuff that they're kind of just throwing in there for Triple H to say that I don't think they actually mean. But Triple H actually says on the show, I think that Liv Morgan is probably going to be our biggest star in the entire division. He doesn't believe that. Uh, like, you could say it, but he doesn't believe it. Like, again, it's just stuff that they're manufacturing to put on the documentary for him to say, sound bites for him to say. And all right, so the biggest issue that I have with this entire show is Braun Breaker.
Oh,
So they talk about Braun Breaker, and well, they talk about guys coming up from NXT that are on the way up, like Obafemi and Trick Williams. But they also talk about Braun Breaker, who has been on the roster, the main roster, for a good amount of time now, and they're talking about how he's going to be the next big star, and he's going to be the next whatever, and they're setting him up to, when Seth gets hurt, and they decide to pull the trigger on him turning on Seth because Seth is going to be gone. Seth gets a bad shoulder injury in his match against Cody, and so they think that all right, it's time to pull the trigger on Braun, which we all pretty much agreed that was long overdue. And they also talked about, like, there was that moment in War Games where he landed on his head and got up like right away. Like, they were
yeah,
obviously very
he's
concerned.
lucky he didn't break his neck there.
Yeah, but Braun didn't do anything wrong. But he basically just got thrown to the side after he got injured and never recovered. As far as, like, creatively, he got injured, and then they were like, all right, well, I guess we got to move on to somebody else. We're going to give it to Bronson Reed. And then he gets hurt. And then from there, they're like, all right, well, this isn't what we had planned for the Vision, but I guess we're going to do this. And this is basically where Triple H is talking about sometimes things change and we have to figure it out. And they didn't figure it out with Braun. They still
Yeah, it was unfortunate because it feels like this is a tried and true story that happens in this business. Like, you talk about like these guys from the '80s that would wrestle through like serious injuries that they probably needed to take care of themselves first before having to go back and keep doing it, but they won't do it because they're afraid of losing their spot, right? And this is sort of like what's going on here. You know, Braun lost his spot. They moved on to somebody else. They weren't sure when he was going to be back, so they picked somebody else. And I no disrespect to Bronson Reed. I think he's a tremendous competitor. He's very talented, but I don't know if he was at the level of Braun. Like he is supposed to be the backup guy, and now you're shoving him into the front. I wasn't sure at the time how it worked, but we would never know because he got injured so quickly afterwards that he got put on the shelf. And then like at that point, the Vision was just like it probably should have died a quick death after like those two got injured, and then maybe just I don't even know they needed them recreated afterwards, but it was like it goes from like Seth Rollins, Braun Breaker, Bronson Reed to like Austin Theory, Logan Paul, and Paul Heyman. It's like the unseriousness of that transition is just very telling,
And now Braun is back. or he's been back since WrestleMania,
Mm-hmm.
and he's fourth in line in that group. He's not. He's the least important person in the group,
Yeah.
which is crazy because he's the most talented. Um, Going off of that, as far as like young talent, like I mentioned, they talked about Trick Williams and Obafemi getting the call up, and one of the most egregious things said on this entire show, literally ever, is Bruce Pritchard going out of his way to be like, "Oh well, if we're going to call up these guys, we can't push them too hard. We gotta you know slow down a little." Like, no, you don't. These guys are good.
Yeah. The
They're
reason
ready.
NXT exists was to create a character for them that they would then, spend time down there to cultivate and get it over. So that's what happened with Obafemi. When he first came on, people started doing his chant and doing the strut already because they've seen it thousands and thousands of times on NXT already for like
Mm-hmm.
3 years already. You
Yep.
know, um, and yeah, I don't know why Bruce Pritchard. All due respect, he has decades of experience in this field. I don't think he understands the way things work today in 2026. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
actually quite surprised he is still in his position. To be
Yep.
honest, him and Michael Hayes too, because they're like
Yep.
way back OG Vince McMahon people.
Mm-hmm.
How they are still employed? And
Yeah, and
I don't know if it's just relationships that they've cultivated over the years that are protecting them somehow,
yeah,
but yeah, that line about like, oh, we can't like push them too early because they're not ready and people don't know them yet. That's another example of this company treating its audience like they're stupid.
yeah,
That
and
that we
and
don't
let's
know
not.
that we don't know that a guy named Mike Santana, his name is Mike Santana, but instead you come up with something that just rhymes like his name in order to
Yeah,
make it keep a copyright or something.
and
Okay.
let's not forget, like in the same vein, going back to Braun Breaker, Triple H actually said on the show, and this is another thing that I can't believe he actually said this, especially because of what happened. He said that he did not want to give Braun Breaker the Royal Rumble win because he felt like it would be like they're shoving him down our throats. So instead, you give it to the guy who you've been shoving down our throats for 15 years, Roman Reigns. That is one of the craziest things ever
Oh,
said on a WWE documentary.
like the sort of lack of self awareness is actually like sad. It's not even funny anymore. Because I remember when Roman Reigns won the Royal Rumble 10 plus years ago, and I
Yeah.
can tell at that point, even then, it was shoved heavily down our throats to the
Mm-hmm.
point where they brought the Rock out in order to
To try to
make
get him
him
cheered.
say to get him cheered. That did not work, and the Rock was still arguably one of the most popular people guys in that company at the time. So it's like
Yeah.
if you can't even get that, and it's like there was a problem there. You were it took Roman years to finally build up to the point where people did like him. He had to turn heel in order to do so first.
Yeah.
Um, but you say this Braun Breaker, you spent 2 3 years making him this unpredictable badass. Like this guy, like in the prior rumbles, almost killed a like high profile influencer in the ring, so he has eyeballs on them already.
And he got
How many people
embarrassed in
watch?
that
How
Royal
many? How
Rumble.
many people? How many people watch that I show speed spear clip? Like millions and millions
Yeah.
and millions of people. And
And
then
then
and then they
in
did it
the
in the
Royal
worst
Rumble,
possible way. They had him like. I mean, I don't even know if Santino Morella lasted longer than Braun Breaker in that segment, and it was just
uh,
embarrassing.
Yeah, they had Braun come out number 1 or number 2, and then he got beat up by a masked man, which ended up being Seth,
Mhm.
and then eliminated immediately by Obafemi. So you basically ruined Braun Breaker right then and there at that moment. But of course, Braun Breaker injured himself by doing that stupid thing he did with the announce table. But
he got a hernia, which
yeah,
I'm sorry. Hernia to me always sounds like one of the funniest injuries because I remember in Parks and Recreation, the
mm-hmm.
episode where Ron Swanson got the hernia and got stuck at his desk.
Yeah,
But yeah, it was just sad. Although the stuff I liked them talk about Braun's like hobbies and his personal life and what he does like when he's
yeah,
off. Obviously, again, like what we said, I like the human element of the show where they talk about what these people do in their
yep,
real lives. But yeah, I'm just sorry. I
yeah,
just found like getting a hernia, and that's how what took you out. It's just
mm-hmm.
really funny if it wasn't that serious that it cost him like a possible major push. It was yeah, I
four
don't
four
know,
months,
4 months.
4 months.
Yeah, 4 months of a time that you could have spent building up your presence on that show.
Yeah, and obviously he was supposed to face Seth at Mania, and then they had to delay that, and then he loses to Seth, and now he is where he is, which is sad. Um, so now let's talk about Cody Rhodes. So everything that they've done with Cody Rhodes in the last 2.5 years on this show and just in WWE in general has been unfortunate because Cody loves this. Obviously, you can tell that every time they have him on this show. He makes it very clear that he loves this. So the fact that they are just meddling in everything that he does to the point where they had this ready-made story that they're actually pulling off right now, which they should have did at Mania, where him and Randy Orton have this long history. But instead, we're going to include Pat McAfee and Jelly Roll, which they didn't even really address on this show. It was another one of those things that was kind of just like the elephant in the room as to why it went bad, but they didn't explain why it went bad. It went bad because that was not good. They should not have did that. And they try to paint it like, "Oh, well, we tried." No, you didn't. That's the problem. You didn't try. And obviously there's been reports that a lot of the Cody stuff that's been happening has been happening from above Triple H's pay grade, which is also ridiculous because those people do not have a mind for wrestling. They only have a mind for money. And Cody, again, Cody doesn't come off as the kind of person that gets upset just because it didn't go the way he wanted. He, I think he gets more upset when something goes bad in the ring. And he didn't even care that because there was like a blind side that Randy actually punted him directly in the eye. And he goes backstage and his eye is swelling up like immediately. And everybody else is kind of like,
Mm.
"Hey, are you all right?" And he's like, "Yeah, was everything look good out there?" Like, Cody, go to the doctor. Shut up and go to the
Your
doctor.
eye is about to fall out of your face, sir. Yeah.
Yeah,
Forget if the look good out there. It looked
yeah,
way too good out there.
yeah. And of course, Randy Orton felt bad. He didn't mean to, kick him in the eye for real. But like all of that stuff that did not help the story was just glossed over. They didn't even acknowledge it on this show. And
Would you? What were you expecting to? Look, everybody, I think, universally accepted how bad it was to include like
yeah,
celebrity non wrestlers in a storyline that that was 20 years in the making at least. So
yeah,
you didn't need like outside influencers or public figures to like muddy the whole process. Which now they just realize their mistake and are trying to make up for it, but it might have been too
yeah,
late by it may be too late by now, I believe. So
yeah,
they're not going to talk about that. They're not going to talk about the fact that like blah blah. No, I don't know, like what you mentioned before. Like they're not going to talk about like how the Rock was just basically checked out of that major storyline and that kind of
uh-huh.
thing. Just like they're not going to talk about the thing we can bring up when we talk about Obafemi versus Brock Lesnar later. Very
Yeah,
significant thing happened, which was completely ignored. Yeah,
yeah, yeah. And even to that extent, like there was literally no mention of Roman Reigns on this show at all.
I'm surprised. It's like one of your top guys just completely not even brought up. Like not
And
even like in a passing segment. I don't think.
you have like CM Punk basically. So CM Punk is on this show pretty heavily talking about the fact that he's, going to be in this the biggest match of his career, his dream match, a WrestleMania, true WrestleMania main event, and he's the only person talking about it, and nobody else. It's almost like he could have had this match against anybody.
Right.
Like his
It's like
opponent didn't matter.
you don't think Roman would have maybe an opinion or because by not talking to him, you make it sound like as though Roman didn't care. It's just like oh, it's another Sunday,
Yeah,
another WrestleMania. Who am I facing?
yeah,
Oh, it doesn't matter. CM Punk. Oh, of course it's CM Punk. Of course, it's like it was. Now
yeah,
that you bring it up, it is really really strange that they did not think to at least like put Roman's perspective into this whole build into the build of the show. It's like, huh?
yeah. Not even a little. Like they didn't even say his name once. I don't think on this show. Um, but yeah, it's just strange. And then so you mentioned Obafemi, so let's talk about him. Um, of course, we talked about the Bruce Pritchard thing, and the thing that I liked was like he was talking about the strut and like how it's like very reminiscent of Ric Flair, but
Mm-hmm.
it's his own, and nobody else could do it, and anybody else kind of looks stupid doing it, but he it works for him because it's true. Like if any other wrestler was doing that, they would they would look ridiculous. But I believe that this giant 300-pound man just is that person. And they talked about him and Brock and how that came about, and Brock usually only works well against people he wants to work with. That's why his match with Moxley was bad, because he didn't want to work with John Moxley.
Mm.
He wanted to work with Obafemi. That's why they had the matches that they had. And Obafemi, I think, you know, felt like that was a big deal for him. And obviously we've talked about this. I don't think that it needed 3 matches, but I felt like the WrestleMania match was enough, but yeah, I mean, I
So
liked.
yeah,
Go ahead.
I feel like yeah, I understand. Like you've expressed that viewpoint many times already.
Yeah,
Uh, I feel like in the next season they should address like this kind of build up to that SummerSlam match because I feel like they do want to talk about the build to SummerSlam Minnesota, especially if this was supposed to be Brock's retirement match and like Chad Gable
uh,
winning the Intercontinental title. Because
yeah,
I do want to hear like some of that backstage stuff about how Brock worked closely with Oba because he actually saw someone that he could actually replace him, you know,
yeah,
in the spot. Because I do want to hear about that. Um, we could talk. I mean, yeah, you're right. I mean, the WrestleMania match could have just cleanly ended that feud right there.
yep.
Um, but and I guess they had some other stuff going on at Minnesota that they wanted to try.
Hmm.
I did not dislike the second or the third final match that they had at SummerSlam. But like I
Yeah.
think I told you before, or maybe we talked about it mutually. I'm not sure it
Hmm.
needed to be a Hell in a Cell match when the Hell in a Cell wasn't
No,
as prominently featured. It could have
nope.
been just in a no holds barred Minneapolis street fight of sorts. Like you
Uh
build it
huh.
like that. Build it as something locally recognized, right? Even like, but you could tack on any city name as a street fight, and people will
Yeah.
pop with that.
Well, I know why they
I
did a
would
Hell in a
have,
Cell.
yeah, and I would have had Brock cost Oba the King of the Ring finals because if they were not gonna have Oba challenge for the title anyway, do not let him win the King of the Ring and give that
Yep.
title shot to somebody else, please.
Oh no, we had to
Uh,
just instead we just handed the title match to Seth. Like
right,
literally, he did
yeah,
nothing. He lost. He lost the King of the Ring tournament and got the title shot anyway. Which is
yeah, but I
crazy.
don't. It was like no, it was Jey Uso that faced Oba in the finals, was it?
Yeah, but Seth still was in the tournament and lost, and still got a title shot.
Oh, oh yeah, okay, yeah, yeah, okay. But I think that's a different branch of a storyline that is
Yeah,
in the
yeah,
wider scheme of things, like the booking that doesn't make sense.
yeah,
But yeah, like if you're not gonna give him, like you're not gonna have him challenge for the title, don't make him win the King of the Ring, and don't like just randomly give Brock a win over the young kid and at some pay per view out in Italy somewhere. It's like
yeah,
I mean, yeah, like it would the flow of the storyline would have made more sense if Brock came in, screwed Oba, which would like given them reason to have a sort of rubber match at
yep,
SummerSlam, whatever. But yes, I'm hoping in season 4 they do a much deeper dive into Oba because I do feel like Oba's character or the person behind him, I do like to find out a little bit more about him. Although I am curious because, as we said before, this is a sort of a wrestling book type of documentary. Is Oba speaking in an accent for the documentary? Because I've heard him speak
yes,
before. He became
yeah.
Oba Femi, and he
He still did the
clearly,
accent. He still did the
yeah,
accent with it.
he did. It's at this point where I think it's just like his real voice now. Like I can't even
Yeah,
remember what he would have sounded like otherwise.
yeah,
It's the Kofi Kingston thing, right? It's like from long ago, and then suddenly he just like
yeah,
he just stopped doing it, and then people just like, oh yeah, yeah, oh you sound like normal, and then that's it.
yeah.
But
And we also had some, not really a long thing, but we had like a check in with Chelsea Green on this.
yes, yes,
Because basically at the end of season 2, she was like,
yeah,
"Oh, this is going to be my new dream home,"
yes,
and
and
so then we pick up from here, and now the house is completely built. And because he works there, Matt Cardone is allowed to appear on the documentary.
yeah, good for him. I love how I love how when they were talking to her that she was like, yeah, I wasn't into the whole him collecting action figures at
Yeah,
first, but I'm like, okay, would I rather have him sit at home and just like playing with his toys and collecting action figures, or do I want him out every other night getting drunk with the boys and partying and
Yeah.
collecting other women. And it's like, that is extremely sensible thing to say. And it's like, good on
Yeah.
him and good on you.
Yeah. I imagine we'll get something else from her next season because, as as just happened at SummerSlam, she
Yeah.
became the interim WWE Women's Champion,
Yes.
and she thanked Michael Hayes, who
Hmm.
famously last season said that it was not believable for her to beat Tiffany or Alexa.
Maybe not in a normal match because this was a ladder match that she won.
Yeah,
And it's like, but it's so sad because just after winning this interim championship, she apparently broke her orbital bone
yeah,
and could conceivably be out for 2 to 3 months.
yeah.
Although she has worn a mask, protective face mask on her face as part of a storyline,
Well,
I don't know how well she would
and
be to
and the
do
way I
that.
look at it, and we haven't really talked about this too much, is like Liv did not defend her belt for 100 days. That is
Right.
3 months and 10 days.
Hmm.
Why would Chelsea need to be stripped?
Yeah, somebody. I'm hoping somebody around that creative room is like says that out loud because it's like,
Yeah,
okay, why? And but then again, that goes to like who is on the pecking order in that company, right? Liv getting her own themes, allowed to sing her own theme song,
mm-hmm.
probably having more what you call seniority in the company. What Liv's been
Yeah,
there for like what 10, 12 years now. It's hard to say that even. Than Chelsea
2014, I
was,
think.
who left. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, because and Liv's been there the entire time. Versus Chelsea, who was like let go once and then went back to
yep,
like TNA and then came back. It's not like it's not like she left on her own. She got like furloughed or fired, right? And
yeah,
then she did well enough for herself, enough for them to hire her back. Um,
yeah,
but maybe
yeah.
that's a
I imagine that because not even just because she won the belt, but now because of this injury, they'll probably have more to talk to her about next season.
mm,
After
yeah,
winning
true,
it
true. Yeah, of course, yeah.
finally. But yeah, so overall, I think I have like the same perspective. It hasn't really changed. I think if they obviously they're gonna do a season 4. If they do a season 4, I think they need to focus more on the wrestlers and less about the creative process because whatever they do for the creative process just comes off as look at me, feel bad for me because this is not easy. And they just leave stuff out, as we've talked about numerous times here. They leave stuff out that are details that are needed for people to understand how the creative process actually works. Because, as we've been saying since the beginning of this, even though this is a documentary of being behind the curtain, they are still working.
I feel like if no matter maybe based on how many seasons they can churn out of this, subsequent seasons might get better. Because like the first
Mm-hmm.
couple of seasons as of now, you know, there's like the way you sound, it's like there's more to not like about it than it's almost a 50-50. It's
It's
like
only
we
about the
like the
creative stuff.
yeah, that the creative stuff, like they talk about the creative stuff, it's just not very, very honest about like the creative stuff. It's just more
Yeah.
like, the human element stuff is great. But if they talk about the creative stuff in a sense that like how do we decide like who's doing what during a match, it might be more interesting than them
Mm-hmm.
talking about like why is so and so winning, what is the reasoning behind them going over here. And it's like I don't think they'll be totally honest because there's always a bunch of stuff in the background that they don't really want to talk about.
Yeah.
But probably in the heat of the moment stuff, like when they're talking, when I love to see more of those segments when the match is happening. Meanwhile, they're panning in the back. It's like Bobby Roode or Tyson Kidd sitting there like telling them, okay, can I finish that? Okay, what are we doing? What are we doing? Blah blah blah. Doing
Mm-hmm.
the producing, because like you always hear them like you hire these ex wrestlers as producers. Okay, what do they actually do? We got a glimpse of that in season 1 when Abyss apparently made a match go too long and made Bruce Pritchard
Yeah.
pee his pants and be a bit bitch about it to the
Mm-hmm.
point where you know, um, I want to see maybe they should interview like guys like Bobby Roode and P.D. Williams and Tyson Kidd more, because like there's
Yeah.
some of the people who
Yeah.
actually have to do this work behind the scenes rather than
I
just
would
talking
like.
to Hunter. They don't need to talk to Triple H all the time.
Yeah, I would like to hear more about the what goes into putting the match together as a producer. I would like to hear more about that because I feel like at least that will get a little bit more honesty. Whereas when we get this stuff about creative, it's this manufactured BS that they put on the screen that doesn't give us all the details, and that's the stuff that I don't like. You're still working. If you're gonna go behind the curtain, then go behind the curtain. Tell me why. To go back to episode 1, the why of everything. Give me the actual reason. Don't say you're gonna give me the why of everything and then dumb it down and hide some stuff that you don't want me to know. That's not giving me the why. That's giving me your why, not the why. And that just makes everybody look stupid, including the viewer. So I don't hate the show by any means. I actually very much enjoy it. I I like I mentioned before multiple times now. I enjoy the wrestler's perspective because I actually care about the wrestler's perspective. And I would like more of the wrestler's perspective because the creative perspective just makes me angry. And I imagine we're going to get stuff about Rhea next season with her unfortunate injury. Um, there will be more about Cody, I'm sure. There will be more about CM Punk. And yeah, I mean, obviously, I think more than anything, like the AJ stuff, the AJ Lee stuff, was probably the like most emotional stuff because of how like she's talked about openly about like her battles with depression.
Depression, yeah.
Yeah, and how like she just fell out of love with wrestling because she needed to work on herself, and I love her openness about that. As somebody who battles depression very frequently, I understand it completely, and just her feeling fulfilled in this run, I think is the thing that I love the most. Was there any one thing specifically that you like took from this that you really enjoyed?
I would say again, it's just finding out sort of the person behind the character
Yeah.
of these of the show.
Mm-hmm.
Just learning about just a bit of the background and and how they view their role in this company, and
Mm-hmm.
just sort of like
Yeah.
how things like injury or just those sort of like grinding for years just to get here, or
Mm-hmm.
like other things, life situations
Yeah.
affect them professionally and how they get through that. It's a
Yep.
very important thing to show, and it's not only just an important thing to show to hardcore wrestling viewers like us, but it's a good way to show to in general to people who don't watch wrestling, who just thinks it's like these guys in short tights and just like bump around the ring in like some
Mm-hmm.
acrobatic performance. No, this is like real stuff, and people do get injured, and they do have to like take time to recover. And how does that affect them?
I always whenever I see somebody who doesn't really watch wrestling, whether it's like I see interviews of like whether it's a celebrity or just meet people who watch wrestling for the first time but never really like watch it, and they're like, oh I understand that like it's choreographed or whatever, but the stuff that they're doing, like, I couldn't do that. Like, I a great example of that was like the cast of Super Troopers was at SummerSlam, and
Oh,
a couple of them are actual fans, but the other guys are not. But
mm,
they still, I've seen some interviews that they've done recently where they talked about like the experience of being there, like they were at SummerSlam, and the guys who are not fans were like, the stuff that they're doing is crazy because I couldn't do that. So there's still like there that respect there of like seeing
yeah.
it and understanding it, even if you're not a fan. And I think that's what this show is mostly about. So,
Yep, I agree.
all right. So I think we're gonna call it there. Hopefully, I hope everybody enjoyed season 3 of Unreal. Um, I mentioned earlier that we're probably gonna we don't really get to talk about Dark Side of the Ring, but I think this year we're actually going to probably get to that once the season is over, and
Yep.
mainly because there's some stuff that I think we haven't really gotten to talk about. Mostly the Jeff Jarrett stuff, I think, is what we're going to talk about the most. But yeah, I think we'll probably talk about this season once it reaches its conclusion, and we'll try to get some other ideas out there for podcasts other than just reviewing stuff because we tend to be.
Reviewing AEW and talking about
Yeah,
how WWE sucks.
yeah, I mean that's kind of our thing. But
Yeah.
we won't be reviewing another AEW show until All In. So until then, we'll have some other stuff to talk about uh, going into it and after it. So that is going to do it for us. Make sure to go to our linktree / going over big time podcast for all of the ways to watch and listen to this podcast, as well as social medias for us both and the podcast itself. The podcast is now on, it's still on Twitter, Instagram, Blue Sky, and Facebook. So you can support us any way that you would like, and give us a like and a subscribe on YouTube to get our stuff out there to more people. So that is going to do it for me. Alan, give us your closing thoughts.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for listening and or watching, everyone, and just to us reviewing this documentary. That's we feel is still in the infant stages of its development, but it has its ups and downs, but it's a good sort of like backstage look for a general audience about what WWE is all about. So thank you for listening to us, and have a good day.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good one.